Welcome back to Breakfast with Bob. My name is Bob Babbitt, and we are at the IT World Triathlon Championships here in beautiful Chicago. We're sponsored by Epson, and you are watching us on triathlete.com. My next guests, two. Michellie Jones, who, Olympic silver medal, XTERRA world champion, Iromman world champion, two-time ITU world champion. I don't know what the heck I forgot. But more importantly, you have a new goal, and that is to go to the Paralympics with the lovely Katie Kelly and work together to get a gold or silver or bronze down in Rio. So, Michellie, tell me about how all this came about.
Well, it was, I can't say it was me that came up with the great idea, but it was the Australian para triathlon coach, Corey Bacon. He rang me up and asked me if I wanted to be interested in guiding an athlete.
Yes.
And straight away I said, yep, would love to do it. And Katie, what did you say when you found out that I'd agreed to it?
I was like, Michellie Jones. I just couldn't believe that they were, that's what he was saying.
Yeah. Michellie, did you say Michellie who?
Yeah. And then she's just like, call me MJ. I'm like, oh, that's good. I'll get that right.
So, Katie, talk a little bit about your athletic background and your, in terms of being sight impaired. What can you see?
Pretty good centrally, so I'm just losing my peripheral vision.
Okay.
So I've always, been one of those weekend warriors and done lots of triathlons over the years and marathon runs, and I've done an Ironman, and I've just had to adjust as my vision's got worse. So.
And when were you diagnosed?
At 25 with Usher syndrome, so deaf-blind condition. And then officially categorised as a legally blind, vision impaired person in January this year.
So just basically what do they call it?
Yeah, I guess they classify you.
They're classified.
That's right, yep.
So this is a great story. Tell Bob the first thing you did.
You got to use that microphone thing, kiddo.
Okay.
Microphone, testing.
Yes.
Tell Bob the first thing you did, though, after you got classified as being legally blind.
Well, yeah, I guess I use this one. Okay, I can use both.
You can use both. This is your world.
So I guess the day after, when you get that kind of news, like it's, that your eyesight is going, it's not the greatest thing you want to hear. So the next day, I sort of was thinking about it, and I rang Triathlon Australia the very next day after getting that sort of confirmation I was legally blind, and they were excited to hear from me because vision impaired PT5 is part of the Rio program. So they said, send us your times and we'll have a look. And apparently my times were good enough. And so it just went from there. So literally I did my first WPE World Para Tri event in February at the Sunshine Coast. So here I am at the Worlds some 6 months later. So it's been quite incredible.
What's always fascinating to me is how quickly people can adapt to changes in their life, right?
Yeah.
We've seen it with their Challenged Athletes Foundation. When somebody gets injured in Iraq or Afghanistan, the quicker you get them back in the sport, the less the depression spiral becomes part of their life. So how important has this been, just to all of a sudden, okay, I got really bad news, now I've got a goal that can lead me to the first ever para-triathlon in Rio?
Yeah, and that's what's quite profound about the para-tri sport in general. It does give you a focus, and for me it is a case of life's too short if there are opportunities, and so definitely to have this amazing opportunity and all the resources that have come with it, and it's nothing I take for granted. And it's the same with all our other athletes in the team and across the sport. You have those moments of you've got to have a few tears and whatever, but it's so important to set those goals, and I think sport gives everybody that opportunity to do that, to focus on things that they love. And so what's fantastic about this really is the next generation of kids coming through to know that there's going to be those pathways to excel and, to represent their country.
And they're going to all grow up wanting to be Katie Kelly.
Yes.
That's what's so cool.
And then everyone else wants to be the MJ guide.
Yeah. And so MJ, working with Katie, and, she obviously had a way that she was training before, but I know the MJ style is you're not going hard enough, more intensity, don't just go for long rides, long runs, long swims. It's if you train slow, you stay slow. Talk a little bit about what you needed to do work-wise with Katie to basically get the best out of her and you.
Well, one of the nice things is our Australian para-tri coach, Corey Bacon, understands that, to be a sprint athlete, you definitely have to increase your intensity. I think for me personally, where I feel that I've been a benefit to Katie is the 27 years that I have on race day.
Exactly.
You know, those little things that I can teach her, you know, and, you know, I'm pretty good at, like, reading a race and knowing when we have to go. And the typical example was that when we were in Italy.
Yes.
And we had 30 seconds to make up for the victory, and we had about a mile to go.
And we're talking a 750-meter swim, a 20K bike,
Yeah.
and then a 5K run. So when you're talking a minute to make up or whatever,
Yeah.
you're talking in a 5K.
No, and you know, it's tough, and you've got to know when to break your competitors, and you've got to know what your strengths are as well as their weaknesses. And, you know, that race in particular, we're still learning a lot about each other, but I just said to Katie, I go, if you don't go now, this is not going to happen. And, you know, lucky she had another gear, and we ended up with the victory. And now that we've got to spend not 1 or 2 days together, but before this World Championship, we've actually been in a training camp in Florida. We've spent the last 2 weeks. And, you know, it's amazing because even though I've done triathlon for 27 years,
Yeah.
this is completely different because, you know, the communication is super key. I mean, even going over a small bump that, you know, a sighted person has no issues with. And Katie also is hearing impaired, and she doesn't wear her hearing aids.
What?
Sorry.
So she's like, Michellie, you got to scream at me. So you'll hear us on race day. I'll be like, corner left, corner right, bump. You know, all
Yeah.
those things. Get up now. You know, it's a communication process, and we're still learning that. And I think what I would like to bring to the table is the fact that, you know, I've been there, I've done it. Now I want to help, you know, Katie live her dream.
So Katie, did she make you puke in that race in Italy?
Bob, she did. I'd never heard so much. and then, you know, it was so great after that race. She said, I'm really proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And then she said with her wicked smile, but I'm so glad I made you puke. I went, no. But yeah, she's certainly got the best out of me, and I'm still learning a lot in terms of racing in that, you know, sort of sprint distance, you
Yes.
know, is a difference for me, but also just the intensity, you know, to perform at this level.
So Michellie, you mentioned race day, and there's so many little things in terms of how you set your bike up, how you've seen other athletes, their bikes are dirty, their bikes aren't quite ready, they haven't really aired up their tires. All those little things. Is there any difference between racing as a pro and racing for the Paralympics in terms of all the little details?
Well, I think that's one thing that people have to realize, that these athletes are an elite athletes.
Yes.
You know, they're trying to achieve the same thing that our able-bodied athletes are trying
Right.
to achieve, and that's to get the most out of the body. And for me personally, you know, professionalism, you know, involves making sure everything's clean, everything's new, there's no scratches. And Katie is experiencing that. You know, our bike is absolutely fantastic. She had great support. She was able to raise enough money to get a brand new tandem for us, which is amazing. My sponsors kicked in, Felt kicked in, Zip kicked in, Rudy Project kicked in, a bunch of stuff. You know, Katie's had great support within her community, and it's nice that I get the opportunity to bring my community in to also help her. But definitely, you know, if you come out and watch 7 a.m. on Friday, you'll not only be inspired, but you'll be blown away by how fast these athletes actually are.
And on Friday, is there, in terms of firming up a spot in the Paralympics, what's the path for you guys? Does Friday's race play into that?
Katie, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, Friday's race is, you know, obviously very important to finish to get
Right.
the points for Rio. So that's the main goal, is, you know, you really need to be here and competing at the World Champs and finishing the World Champs to be in consideration for Rio.
So Michellie, I remember being at the that first Olympic triathlon in 2000 in Sydney. Actually, I've got my shirt in the car. I was going to wear it during the interview to remind Michellie. But that day, you remember what it was like walking down. You had tears in your eyes walking down. Here's our little dinky sport that both of us have been involved with in front of 500,000 spectators in downtown Sydney, basically your hometown. What do you think the feeling could be like going to, 16 years later, being the first ever Paralympics and walking down the starting line of that?
Well, actually, Katie's made me cry a few times. I haven't really
You
showed
made her
my
cry
tears.
too.
All good stuff though.
But it is. It's like even when you're racing with these athletes, it's so inspirational, and the Olympics is so emotional. That's what's going to take a lot of the Paralympians who's never been to Olympics. That's what's going to take them by surprise of how emotional it is, how patriotic it is, and how grand everything is. And the expectations are high, but I tell Katie this all the time. It's, as Bob likes to say, I actually took it from Bob. It's just another catered training day.
Yeah.
And that's what's so important, and that's why you do
Catered workout, baby.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
My guide, Bob.
I should be your guide.
He's been a guide
but
before.
You know what? Yeah, we'd be stopping
Yeah.
for snacks, and you wouldn't
Good
be
cup of
racing fast.
coffee, I love my
No.
So yeah,
exactly.
I think the Paralympic experience, I think is going to be way more emotional,
Yes.
way more inspirational, and an amazing journey. And as Katie said, our number one goal, is to finish on the weekend. And whatever happens out there, we're going to be so happy because this is Katie's first ever World Championships. So we're both excited to get on the start line.
Well, thank you both for joining.
Thank
Always
you,
a
Bob.
pleasure.
Yeah, great.
Again, this is Breakfast with Bob. Our guests have been Michellie Jones and Katie Kelly, who will be making the Para-Tri in 2016 and coming home with a medal. Again, we are brought to you by Epson. You're watching us on triathlete.com. We are at the ITU World Championships here in beautiful Chicago. Hold on, everyone. We will be right back.